When diving into the topic of cultural differences, particularly those across Latin America, it was a shock for me to realize the first thing which came to mind were short videos which I would generally describe as Facebook mom memes. You've probably come across some variation of the type. A quick search on YouTube for white versus Hispanic parents will display pages upon pages of results. 1-minute skits, sometimes starring young men with towels over their heads to act out as their mothers. These videos often juxtapose the more calm and lenient form of American parenting with a more blunt and passionate form of Latino instruction. On screen, this wider range of emotional extremes from Latino parents manifest themselves through ardent sermons, pronounced facial expressions, and exaggerated R's, as the mothers call out names such as Ramiro Hernandez Rodriguez. No doubt, these traits are largely dramatized for comedic effect. However, judging by how these videos make my Nicaraguan mother laugh and their reoccurrence in the media begin to hint at a greater shared experience. Besides basing myself solely on experiences and not all that funny videos, sorry mom and to those who enjoy these, research supports the idea that societies tend to have a distinct social orientation. This means that within a region, there are certain cultural values which influence interactions between people. Latin America, for example, has been considered a collectivistic society. According to a paper published in the Journal of Social Psychology, collectivism can be described as building a sense of community and interdependence. More collectivistic individuals tend to conform more closely to group norms and prioritize the others before themselves. This is placed in contrast to more individualistic societies, such as the United States, in which individuals tend to prioritize their own well-being, freedoms, and independence. I've seen the differences between American and Latino culture firsthand. When I was younger, I lived for almost 6 years in the United States, and then went on to live in various Central American countries, including Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and most recently, Guatemala. Due to my life and the experiences and stories of older family members, I've been able to appreciate both the grand and subtle manifestations of culture. For us, a family of Latino in the States, there were definitely cultural differences present. Greetings, for example, were confusing when we had to abandon our well-practiced kiss on the cheek routine. Mishaps from our side were always awkward. There was also the notable deception of going to the first birthday parties, expecting to aggressively assault the piñata with a stick, only to realize that Americans apparently for the candy to come out, because where's the fun in that? The Latino stereotype as a whole, and as seen through the short videos, is one we've become accustomed to. They evoke images of young girls in the corner chismeando, or dramatic televised scenes from shows such as Caso Cerrado, where, let's face it, most of us here acquired our earliest legal knowledge from. But there's so much more to go beyond these simple stereotypes, beginning by analyzing how these collectivistic values specifically impact family norms in the region. According to research by associate professors from the University of Missouri and Michigan State University, the most prominent values in Latino families are those which focus on promoting the family unit. This can be described as respeto, respect, educación, education, and familismo, or familism. Respeto and educación can be broadly defined as promoting an emphasis on maintaining roles within the family, especially along gender lines, complying to household rules, and displaying good manners, especially towards the elderly. That third trait, however, familismo, takes center stage in the discussion of the Latino family due to its prominence. It is described as emphasizing the family as the most important type of instrumental and emotional support. In practice, this would mean that the family's needs are placed before their own, and that the family relationships are their most important type of social tie. In my own family, the term familismo reminds me of special celebrations spent at my grandparents' house. Such reunions consisted of feasts set upon colorful textile cloths, food served in traditional clay bowls, and some other inclusion of corn tortillas. More importantly, however, it signified the coming together of the extended family, including aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely saw otherwise. By no means am I trying to say that I have the most traditional Latino family. As I mentioned earlier, my life has been filled with other influences, such as that of American culture and an increasingly globalized world. Furthermore, especially in a world's regions so drastically impacted by inequality, differences in social class manifest themselves starkly into culture, meaning that a privileged position, even within the same cultural context, can lead to a completely different life, making it so much more than just a number on an account balance. Last year, I was intrigued by this relationship between culture and social class. So many of the articles I had read on the Latino family focused on incomes of low Latino individuals, or immigrants living outside of their countries of origin, making it not fully representative of the diverse Latino population. There was also a lot of research which suggested how social class can promote its own type of culture. Particularly influential was that of Michael W. Cross, an associate professor of organizational behavior at Yale University, in which one of his studies he found a correlation between a lower class and a stricter form of parenting. Due to all of these findings, I began to wonder how truly Latino this idea of familiar community was. Was that image in my head of a Latino mother throwing a chancla truly just a myth? For this purpose, I conducted a research study of my own, focused on investigating if social class had an effect on the beliefs and opinions of Guatemalan parents within Guatemalan City. In total, my study consisted of 80 participants. Social class was measured by average household income, and the beliefs of parents were measured by asking them their agreement or disagreement to a series of statements, many of which were used from certified psychological measures, such as the Mexican-American Cultural Value Scale. An example of such a statement would be, within the household, children must comply to household rules even if they think it's unfair. Afterwards, correlations were examined using an analysis of variance, or an ANOVA. No doubt, my research must be flawed in many regards due to my inexperience as a researcher, and also by not having a fully representative sample of Latin Americans. Nevertheless, I believe my results are worth sharing. As the literature had indicated, I found that parents from less affluent families tended to have a stricter form of parenting that was more stereotypically Latino. This was seen as they ranked higher on measures which scored their adherence to religion, traditional gender roles, respect, and uncontested obedience when disciplining their children. My more interesting finding, however, was that Familismo, you remember that really relevant cultural trait in Latin America, was found in equally high degrees across the socioeconomic spectrum. So it appears that there are values that do transcend class. But don't just take my word for it. You probably shouldn't anyways, though in my defense, I did get full marks in this paper from my AP research course. Way more professional studies than mine suggest a similar finding. For example, studies which compared collectivistic societies, such as that of Russia and Japan, compared with more individualistic ones, such as the United States, found that there were certainly differences among the beliefs of parents across class lines. This meant that the working class parent had more similar beliefs with the middle class parents, regardless of their country of origin. Nevertheless, this did not mean that culture did not play a crucial role in identity formation. Both studies remarked on the influential effect of culture on mediating these effects of social class. This meant that overall, it was the middle-class American parents who had displayed the highest levels of individualism, and it also didn't mean that the three societies had their own set of shared beliefs. But culture doesn't just define itself along social class. Even amongst low-income Latino individuals, these cultural traits can manifest themselves differently and in tangible ways. In a study published in the American Journal of Community Psychology, they found that within impoverished Mexican-American neighborhoods, a higher presence of familismo was directly associated with increasing maternal and parental warmth, thus positively increasing the mental health of adolescents in these communities. In a similar study, they found that parents of European descent, in contrast to those of Mexican fathers, did not see a decrease in their family relationships when placed under greater economic stressors. Both of these studies show how these seemingly simple cultural traits can have a direct impact on the well-being of families. In this case, acting as a protective resource for families undergoing complicated financial and social struggles. But familismo can also carry negative connotations, as seen in families which said to promote an over-reliance on gender roles and harmful concepts such as machismo, which can be broadly defined as the belief of the superiority of men over women. Social class is important, and it defines our most intimate relationships in our lives. Look no further than amongst yourselves in the audience, many of whom are Latinos. Not to mention that many of my survey responses were gathered from this same school community, including parents of students, teachers, and staff, as well as other individuals which you might find on a day-to-day basis. For those of you who identify as Latino, think of how your culture plays an important role in your families, at the dinner table, when joking with relatives, when disciplining your children. Think of the values which dictate your household environment. I wouldn't be surprised if at various points in my talk, my mentioning of Latino traits and familiar unity didn't ring a familiar bell. For those of you who aren't parents, perhaps students with college just on the horizon, your culture affects you too. In fact, a paper published by the University of North Carolina found how there might be a stronger influence of Familismo on your college choices and fear of leaving home than you'd expect. And yes, in the writing of this, I've come to appreciate how there appears to be a study for everything. Finally, for those of you who aren't Latinos, I hope you can still see the relevance of this talk. Culture is so much more than a favorite national dish or a traditional style of dressing. It is also more than having been a teenage girl who either celebrated her coming of age with a sweet 16 or a quinceañera, sometimes including the pink sparkly dress and all. Culture is a powerful social force, which can influence our most intimate relationships, especially those amongst the households, without us ever fully realizing. Of course, a population as large as all of Latin America could never be neatly grouped under one umbrella or a 60-second video, as I mentioned in the beginning. There are too many differences, from everything ranging to social class, to nationality, to family history, and the unique nature of every individual. Nevertheless, we can agree that there is something greater which ties us together. And this common identity, composed of strong blood bonds and familiar unity under terms such as familismo, suggests as much. So is there a valid stereotype? Yes, but also in so many other ways, no. As with most things in life, we'll find the answer often lies in that complicated in-between. But I believe that this is truly representative, both of the diverse and colorful tapestry which is Latin American culture, and the beautifully complicated intricacies of every family dynamic, including your own. Thank you.